Bangladesh, a country once shattered by the scars of war, hunger, and economic uncertainty. Today, it stitches the very fabric of global fashion. Over 10% of the world's clothing now comes from this tiny South Asian nation. Can you imagine? From fast fashion in New York to boutiques in Berlin, threads from Bangladesh are everywhere. But how did we get here? And what's the real cost behind this success story? This is not just an industry, it's a revolution. A revolution that employs over 4 million people, the majority of whom are women. A revolution that generates over $50 billion in exports each year, making up a staggering 84% of Bangladesh's total exports in 2023. Meet Sheila. She's 23. She started working at a garment factory at 17, not out of choice, but out of sheer necessity. Today, she supports a family of 5. Her story is just one among millions.
But success often walks hand in hand with sacrifice. Low wages, long hours, unsafe working conditions, and hauntingly, the memory of the 2013 Rana Plaza collapse, which buried over 1,100 lives beneath its rubble. Is this the price we pay for cheap clothes? This video explores the deeper layers of Bangladesh's garment industry. We'll journey through its remarkable rise, unpack the economic gears that keep it running, and confront the uncomfortable truths hidden in the seams. We'll spotlight the roles of workers, factory owners, government bodies, global brands, and unions, each with their own story, their own stake. And we won't stop at the present. What lies ahead in a world threatened by climate change, AI automation, and the relentless demand for fast fashion? Will Bangladesh evolve or unravel under pressure?
This isn't just about clothes. It's about people. It's about power. And it's about the price of progress. Stay with us as we uncover the real story behind Bangladesh's booming garment industry.
When you hear the word Bangladesh, what comes to mind? Floodplains? Maybe the Sundarbans? Or perhaps poverty? But there's a new identity rising, stitched into every hem and collar that ships out from this small yet mighty nation. This is the story of how Bangladesh's garment industry became the economic engine of the country and a key player on the global stage.
As of 2025, Bangladesh exports more than $50 billion worth of ready-made garments. That's 84% of all the country's exports. Only one nation beats them, China. But what if I told you this wasn't always the case? Not long ago, Bangladesh was one of the poorest countries in the world, scarred by war, stripped of infrastructure, and cut off from West Pakistan's resources after independence in 1971.
The economy was in ruins. The only major industries, jute and tea. But as global demand for jute declined, the nation needed something new. And then came fabric. Not the kind you just wear, but the kind that reshapes a nation. In 1972, the government took a bold step. It nationalized all textile mills, launching the Bangladesh Textile Mills Corporation, or BTMC. But the real turning point? That came in 1978, with a company called Desh Garments. In a groundbreaking move, they partnered with South Korea's Daewoo and sent 130 Bangladeshi workers for training. Those workers didn't just return with skills. They brought back a blueprint that would go on to transform Bangladesh into a global RMG powerhouse.
In the early 80s, policy reforms began reshaping the landscape. With the 1982 new industrial policy and the establishment of export processing zones in 1983, the government opened doors that welcomed investment, tax breaks, duty-free imports, and behind those doors, factories, thousands of them. Look at the numbers, from $28 billion in exports in 2016 to over $50 billion in 2025. Employment rising to 5 million workers, over half of them women. For many rural women, the garment industry is more than a paycheck. It's a lifeline. It's education for their children, it's food on the table, it's dignity. Did you know that in 1991, only 26% of women were part of the labor force? By 2022, that number had grown to over 42%. This is empowerment by employment. And then came the global breakthrough. In 2005, the multi-fiber arrangement MFA expired. For Bangladesh, that was a green light. RMG exports quadrupled in less than a decade, from $5.7 billion in FY 2004 to $24.5 billion by FY 2014.
But the path wasn't without potholes. The 2007-09 global financial crisis hit hard. Orders slowed, factories struggled. Then came 2020, a year we'll never forget. COVID-19 caused a 17% drop in exports, threatening millions of jobs.
But the government stepped up. $8.56 billion in stimulus kept the wheels turning. And once again, Bangladesh bounced back. Today, the garment industry doesn't just clothe the world, it defines Bangladesh. It fuels its GDP. It empowers its women. It rewrites its global narrative. But what happens when the threads begin to fray? What will automation, climate change, and shifting global demand mean for this fragile balance? In every seam stitched, in every button fastened, there's a story, a hidden chain of people, decisions, and power struggles. But who really holds the threads of Bangladesh's garment industry? In Chapter 2, we peel back the layers to meet the real power players, the workers, the owners, the brands, the government, and the unions. Each one crucial, each one trapped in a web of survival, ambition, and responsibility.
Meet the heartbeat of the industry, the workers. 5 million strong, and more than half of them are women. They've migrated from villages to cities, from rice paddies to production lines, all in pursuit of a better future. But behind the rhythm of sewing machines lies a harsher reality. The average worker earns just $113 a month, but the living wage? Around $460. That's the gap between survival and dignity. Many suffer from chronic health issues, chemical exposure, aching backs, blurred vision. Automation has also cut deep. Once, women made up 80% of the workforce. Now it's down to 55–60%. The machines are faster, but the job security? Weaker than ever.
Over 4,000 factories buzz day and night under the watch of the Bangladesh Garment Manufacturers and Exporters Association, the BGMEA. Factory owners like him are under constant pressure, not just from rising costs, but from powerful global brands that demand lower and lower prices. To keep contracts, they're forced to cut corners, sometimes on wages, sometimes on safety. After Rana Plaza, things had to change. Governments and NGOs enforced safety standards. But compliance costs money, and when profits are squeezed, Where do they save? Big brands love Bangladesh. Cheap production, skilled labor, quick turnaround. Names like H&M, Zara, Gap, Walmart, they all source here. But after disasters like Rana Plaza, the world started asking, who made my clothes? And more importantly, at what cost?
Consumer pressure has sparked change. Transparency reports, factory audits. But is it real reform or just good PR? The government plays both coach and referee. It created export processing zones, gave tax breaks, and opened doors to investors. Post-Rana Plaza, they launched programs with the ILO to improve labor conditions. But behind the headlines, critics say enforcement is weak, especially in EPZs, where union activity is still banned. The 2024 interim government promised change. A labor reform commission was born. But will it act or just advise? In a country where organizing can cost you your job or your life, unions walk a dangerous line. They fight for fair wages, humane hours, and safety. But they face blacklisting, criminal charges, and outright bans in key areas. Many workers are scared, especially women. They whisper support in hushed voices, afraid of being heard by the wrong ears. But despite threats and fear, unions refuse to disappear. They're the last line of defense in a system built to silence them.
The garment industry is a high-stakes chessboard. Factory owners answer to brands. Workers answer to owners. Unions push back while governments try to hold the pieces together. Each player influences the next. One weak move, and the whole system could collapse. But behind the exports and economic glory lies a system on edge. As we'll see in the next chapter, these relationships, strained and volatile, have led to disasters, protests, and a rising cry for change.
The story of Bangladesh's garment industry is both inspiring and unsettling. A tale of remarkable growth and of haunting costs. With over $50 billion in exports and 5 million workers stitching garments that circle the globe, this industry has transformed a nation. But behind the glittering numbers lie questions that tug at our conscience. Yes, the industry built bridges out of poverty. Yes, it gave women a seat at the economic table. But it also brought dangerous trade-offs, low wages, unsafe conditions, tragedies like Rana Plaza. The needle pushed progress forward, but sometimes it drew blood. Still, change is happening. Since 2013, more than 200 green garment factories have emerged, the highest number in the world. Safety protocols have improved. International scrutiny is stronger. But is it enough? New threats loom on the horizon. Climate change may submerge 17% of Bangladesh's land by 2050. Entire factory zones could be swallowed by rising seas. And as automation spreads, machines may replace millions, especially women in low-skill roles. Jobs once seen as stepping stones may simply vanish. Add to that the burden of inflation, labor unrest, and the chilling fact that this industry contributes nearly 10% of global fashion's carbon emissions, and suddenly, fast fashion feels far too costly. The path forward isn't a mystery, but it is urgent. 1. Pay workers fairly. Raise wages closer to a $460 living standard and stop punishing unions. Give workers the dignity they deserve. 2. Build for climate resilience. Flood-resistant buildings, smart infrastructure. Long-term survival depends on it. 3. Go green for real. Don't just market sustainability, live it. Expand green factories, cut emissions, create transparent supply chains the world can trust. 4. Invest in skills. Train the workforce, especially women, to survive and thrive in an automated future.
By 2025, Bangladesh's garment exports are projected to exceed $50 billion. But what about 2035 or 2050? If the industry ignores its warnings, if wages stay low, waters rise, and pollution climbs, this growth may unravel faster than it came. But if it adapts, if it values people as much as profits, then Bangladesh won't just be the world's garment factory. It'll be a model of ethical progress, a beacon. This is the story of an industry at a crossroads. The next chapter is unwritten, and the world is watching. The story isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning again. Bangladesh's garment industry stands at a crossroads. One path continues as before, chasing profit, cutting corners, and risking collapse. The other, a bold new direction, built on fairness, resilience, and vision. Yes, the industry powers the economy, but it's weighed down by the very things that once built it. Low wages, unsafe conditions, and fragile protections. And now, climate change darkens the horizon, threatening to swallow factories, displace workers, and push production to the brink. But there's another way forward, one where wages move toward a true living standard. Unions are free to advocate, not fear. Sustainability isn't a slogan, but a system. Workers, especially women, are upskilled, valued, and protected. It won't happen alone. Collaboration is the fabric of this future, stitched by workers, factory owners, global brands, the government, and civil society. This isn't just about clothes. It's about dignity. About whether prosperity lifts everyone or just a few. If Bangladesh rises to this moment, it won't just be the world's garment hub. It will become a global symbol of what's possible when growth meets justice, when profits meet principles, when the future is sown with care.